Hello, my name is Ryan Bassant, and today I'm going to go through accessibility at the Malton Library. So, the Malton Library is located at 3540 Morningstar Drive in Mississauga, Ontario, and it is one of the main libraries for this area. Basically, the library plays a big role for the community as it's a place for creativity, learning, exploring, curiosity, studying, and making friends among many things. And I thought I would go through and take a visit to see how accessible this is for the community and if there's any ways we can improve accessibility. So the first thing I did was I went to Access Now, a website that lets the place, a business, or users, visitors, to go and leave a review to let others know how accessible this place is. I found one review left by user 11042 6 months ago, and it was rated partially accessible. So they found that there was accessible parking, there was an alternative entrance, automatic door, customer service, handrails, lowered counters, ramp, outdoor access only, and service animal friendly with a spacious area and quiet. Um so with that in mind, I thought I would go and take a visit and see what I could find at this location. So some things I would cover is universal design, and there's basically seven principles that follow this concept. Where is it have an equitable use? Is the design useful and marketable to people with diverse abilities? Flexibility in use. Design accommodates a wide range of individual preferences and abilities. Simple intuitive use. Use of design is easy to understand regardless of the user's experience, knowledge, language, skill, or current concentration level. Perceptible information. The design communicates necessary information effectively to the user regardless of ambient conditions or the user's sensory abilities. Tolerance for error. The design minimizes hazards and the adverse consequences of accidental or unintended actions. Principle 6 is low physical effort. The design can be used efficiently and comfortably and with a minimum of fatigue. And then lastly, size and space for approach and use. Appropriate size and space is provided for approach, reach, manipulation, and use, regardless of user's body size, posture, or mobility. Sorry. So if we go through the entrance and parking, we can see here is the parking lot, and there are four different accessible parkings at the main entrance. There are a few at the side slash rear entrance. In this picture, we can see uh, there's adequate space on both sides of a passenger's door. So if they need to exit through the left or right side, there is a good amount of space. Just behind this vehicle, there is a curb cut allowing users to easily walk through. There's a walkway right there leading to the main entrance. One thing I did notice is that the main entrance is located right beside the neighborhood services door, which are brown here. So because they're not marked like in a manner which is easily identifiable, because the neighborhood services are written on the wall here, and then the right beside it is the other entrance, and there's no braille or any other indication. Some people that are new to the area or have visual impairment may end up using the wrong set of doors. The doors on the left, though, which are the main entrance, are automatic doors, as we see here. So I would recommend using a better signage to just let new users or any user to the place know that this is the main entrance. Um, right beside the book return sign, they could have a sign for users that need braille. Here we can see the book return as it's off to the side. We can see the notice right here is not very legible. It has to be pulled open. So if you're returning multiple books, this can be difficult to put all in and return off all at once. And this is just when the library is closed, but it is still a significant role. It has a purpose, and it is not very accessible if you have to do return a lot of books or you need to know what's actually written on here. The signs are faded, and it could be maintained a little better. Next, when we go through the main entrance, there is no signage posted. Um, this could be a problem as it doesn't follow the principle of universal design. As we can see, it's not uh intuitive or like perceptible information. It's not there, as people that are new to the area may not know where to go. Although it is an open space, and if you walk a few steps forward, just out of that hall, the hall has no other entrances, so you just walk through and then look to your right. You'll see the library. However, I think they could have added some signage just to make that a little more clear. There is a customer service right at like at as soon as you walk in, you'll see it right there, so you could ask for help. But for those with visual impairment, they might not know, and it would be just more accessible to just have that signage there, so a person does not need to depend on someone else. As we see here in this image, the library does have automatic doors to get in and out of the library. Just outside the library, there are washrooms. We can see the sign is just a little high though. It's not at eye level, so the signage could be moved a little lower. It could be adjacent to the wall, perpendicular, like it sticks out, so that way when people are walking by, they don't have to look at the wall. They can look at a sign hanging off just to know that, oh, the washrooms are here. Um, just beyond this picture, there is a accessible washroom. However, it's only uh going to fit like one person at a time. So if multiple people need to use this accessible washroom, um it's going to be difficult because some people have different use cases. If someone had a stoma, for example, that was leaking, they would take a long time versus someone in a wheelchair that would have to use it. It's hard to say, hey, can you get out? I have a more urgent issue. Can't really do that. So if they had more stalls available, that would be great. Make it more accessible for everyone. Although it is like spacious for them to use, having more would just be meeting people's needs as they would need to use the washroom. Next, if we go inside the library, we can see a few different things that I found interesting. So the theft alarm was an improvement from when I was a child. The old entrance would have a big piece of wood blocking it, and then there was two ways to go, one way in, one way out, and it had a push bar like preventing users to easily go through. If you had a what's it called, a little stroller for pushing kids with, parents were not able to easily walk through with that. Similarly, if you were in a wheelchair or other mobility device, you'd have a hard time getting through. So this new theft alarm is a bit better. It's more accessible. However, as we can see here, they do have a sign that is blocking one of the pathways, and I would just simply recommend removing it or putting it just past to allow a more accessible entrance. Next, we can take a look at the self-checkout and librarian desk. This image on the left, we can see that the desk is pretty high up. It's above most of these individuals in the picture's waist. And then the checkout computers are pushed to the back of the counter. So if someone were a little shorter or they had dwarfism, they were in a mobility device, they would have a hard time checking out books by themselves. So what I would recommend is having a shorter counter with a checkout station that's a little more closer to the edge so it can accommodate more individuals that would like to check out items from the library. In the children's section, at first glance, it looks like it is well designed. There are a few different type of chairs we see. Uh, there is this little station where children could store a bunch of books and then read it at their own pace. The shelves are pretty low, and if they are taller, they do not use the top shelves. They removed it and they used the lower shelves. But if we take a closer look just beyond that, we could see in the far back there is this table that can be overwhelming for some children and other users. So essentially, this table has a map of Canada with a bunch of images and information all over it. And if a children was trying to read and they had ADHD or a hard time focusing, this table would be a big issue as they would get distracted from the literature that they were reading and want to look at what is presented on the table. The amount of information that is on this table is overwhelming for some people. There's a bunch of colors, text, images that are just scattered right across, and it could just be a lot for someone to take in. Next, if we look at the chair design, the legs come up a little higher and act as an armrest. And this can also be an issue if someone was a bit bigger in size or wider. They might not fit easily into the chair, they might get stuck, and they would feel uncomfortable or even anxious. So, a best way to address these issues would be to just get a plain table and then use one of the chairs we saw earlier, like this orange one here that has no armrest, so everyone could get in and out, as this would essentially address principle 7, where size and space for approach and use is the appropriate size and reach manipulation, regardless of user's body size, posture, or mobility, is addressed. After that, we can take a look at the wall garden. The wall garden, at first glance, is a cool concept. It is a way for students at the local high school, as you see through that window, can show off ways we can grow our own vegetables and items for the community. Um, However, if we look at this table here, the table is blocking it, and although it is at a lower level, a person in a mobility device may not be able to get past and take a closer look and inspect these vegetables or plants, and they may not be able to actually maintain them. Second, the signage here is pretty small, so it's hard to read. So I would recommend making the text size just a bit bigger, including the images and the diagrams. That way, more people are able to read it, whether it's because of visual impairment or just a language barrier. Just having a bigger font might help reading it so they could take their time and understand what is being shown. Next, if we take a look at bookshelves outside the children area, so these are shelves throughout the rest of the library, we can see they're pretty tall. They use the top shelves on most of these, and if someone was a bit shorter, had dwarfism, or in a mobility device again, they would not be able to reach these higher up books. So what I would recommend is putting them on that one shelf that's not being used near the bottom. It's not on the floor, but it is one just shelf lower. That would be more accessible to everyone that is visiting the library. The CDs that are on display are all in special cases. I would recommend having Braille on it, as no signage throughout this entire facility has Braille. I would just recommend, especially for audiobooks, if someone wants to listen to it, having some Braille on that cover so someone can easily identify what is being which item they're viewing. It would just be a major help. Next, we see the floor to ceiling glass room. They do a good job of having these strips that are frosted across all the floor to ceiling glass. That helps people with low vision impairments to recognize that this is a glass that they're about to walk into. I would recommend having a slightly thicker ribbon going across and more. That way, it's at a variety of um, eye, eye level sight eyesight levels. So like if someone's a bit shorter or taller, although it is in the middle, I would recommend it having it spread across just for those with lower vision impairments. Next thing I would like to address are the door handles. Throughout my visit there, I noticed there were a variety of door handles being used outside the automatic doors. We could see two of the study rooms had different types of doors, although they were right next to each other. One had a lever, one had a doorknob. The room above, which was for the creative design room, we had a 3D printer, the Max, and so on. It uses this pull bar that you would have to unlock using a card. And then finally, the fire exit uses a push bar. One recommendation I would state is using a lever based handle like the one on the left, as it is more accessible for everyone. A good article is shown in the Toronto Star, where Vancouver has banned the use of knobs and have switched to using levers. Howard Jerry, a professor specialized in universal design at Toronto's OCAD University, told the Star to think about an aging population or an individual carrying groceries or small children. Levers make access easier. The same principle could be used here if instead of groceries they're carrying library materials such as books, textbooks, or even school material, as this is a place students might want to use for group projects. Um, they might just want to be able to open the door easily whilst holding that material. So a lever gives them that opportunity, whereas the knob or the card reader and pull bar just needs them to use their hands more. And if we look at the following station, which the Malton Library has, they would be able to address this issue with a lever. So at the accessibility station, we see they have a few different things set up to experience different perspectives for people with impairments. The first being hearing loss, where they have this noise canceling headset or the sound canceling headset, and you want to see if you can follow along with someone's conversation. You put that on, and you'll find that it's very difficult. Similarly, if someone has tactile difficulties, you put on this glove, this mitten, and then try buttoning up your shirt or jacket. You could see that it's hard to do that, especially like if you're trying to roll up your pant leg. So if you have tactile feedback issues, you're not going to be able to easily turn this door knob and so on. So having this lever, which you could just push, is a more accessible means for individuals to use, and everyone is more likely to turn this or push this knob down rather than having to hold on to a knob and try to physically turn your wrist. Um, Next, we see vision loss. There is a magnifying glass that's distorted and it's hard to read any or look through that glass. And then they have braille at the side just to understand the alphabet and how the print helps those with vision loss to read, like how they would read. I would say this is a good concept, but they should take this concept and apply it to their practice, where their signage should include some braille and the doorknob should be addressed for those with tactile difficulties by having those levers to make access more uh available at their place, so it's a more inclusive design overall. And then here are just some of the different citations where I reference some of the material that I spoke about today. And I would take some of this information and apply it to my own reports. So we learned about um, the Ontario OADA, the act to make Ontario more accessible. And one of my professors had made us write reports that were up to that standard by running everything through accessibility checker, and he would not accept the work unless it was approved and stating that it passed the check. This was done through, I believe, Adobe's accessibility checker. But similarly, with this backup information, like I actually understand why we're doing it and not just doing it because, oh, it's for the grade. It makes it more understandable on why we should be designing such pages, reports, and so on, so more people should be able to access it, and having it useful and marketable to a diverse amount of people just makes um, the information get across more easily, so others can understand what is important and what needs to be addressed. So I would apply it to reports that I would have to hand into, whether it's a professor or actual job site. You just send in accessible reports. That way, those that have hard time with images, the loading or whatever, you have that backup of alternate text that's available. So if you couldn't read and you had a screen reader, the screen reader would automatically give you the alternate text information, and that's just something that benefits everyone. So that's how I would recommend. I went through some recommendations and my findings on how to make Malton a better place and how I could take what I've learned and apply it to the real world. Thank you for listening to my presentation.